I bought a pillow just to hear my grandson say goodnight again. But instead of love, I heard my daughter-in-law whisper, if she won't sign the house over, she'll lose her mind soon anyway. I thought I'd break, but instead, I hit record. If you think this is just another family story, you're wrong. Subscribe now to catch more haunting episodes from us. The desert sky above Tucson was painted in bruised orange and fading purple, the kind of sunset that always made Eleanor pause. But tonight, she didn't look up. She was too focused on balancing a lemon tart in one hand and a small gift-wrapped box in the other as she nudged her front door open with her hip. The house was quiet. Always was. That's what happens when your husband's been dead 8 years and your son forgets what day it is. She set the tart carefully on the dining table, centered it, and then adjusted the single-place setting in front of it. Real silverware, cloth napkin, a wine glass even if she didn't plan to pour anything in it. The gesture felt important, like memory pretending to be reality. "Happy birthday to me," she muttered with a dry chuckle. Her voice sounded louder than usual in the empty space. She stepped over to the sideboard and lit a candle beneath the framed photo of her late husband, Dean. He was smiling that sideways smile, the one that barely moved his lips but always lit up his eyes. She stared at him for a long moment before whispering, 72. "You missed it again, Dean." A moment later, she turned to the small box on the dining table. Brown wrapping paper, Amazon Prime tape, and a packing slip that already felt impersonal. She opened it slowly, as if it deserved more reverence than it had been shipped with. Inside was a soft gray pillow in the shape of a cloud. It looked like something made for a child's bedroom. There was a small button stitched near the corner with a label that read, "Record your loved one's voice. Memory Pillow Edition 2. Eleanor ran her hand across the plush surface, her fingers trembling. It had been Noah's idea years ago, or rather her idea that she nudged him into when he was 5, and she was still a welcome presence in their lives. They had recorded his voice saying goodnight, one of those moments that seemed silly at the time, but she'd clung to like an anchor. She looked at her phone. 7:06 p.m. She pressed call under the contact that read, "Richard, my boy." 3 rings, then voicemail. "Hey, it's Richard. Leave a message." Eleanor didn't. She just stared at the phone, then set it down with a soft clack beside the empty wine glass. She took her seat at the table, adjusted the napkin on her lap, and inhaled the faint scent of lemon drifting from the tart. It was store-bought, but she'd dusted it with powdered sugar and added a few mint leaves, trying to make it look like something from the past. Something from when Dean would joke about her culinary overachieving and Noah would sneak bites before dinner. Those days felt fossilized, not gone exactly, just petrified under a layer of forgetting. She picked up the pillow, pressed the soft button, and held it close to her ear. At first there was silence, then a small crackle, and then, "Night-night, Grandma. I love you more than spaghetti." Her breath caught. It was Noah's voice, unmistakably 5 years old, high-pitched, happy. He must have been wearing his dinosaur pajamas that night. She remembered the pattern because he had demanded she sleep with his backup pair when he stayed over. She'd washed them with lavender detergent because she liked the smell, and he'd told her very seriously, "Grandmas shouldn't smell like soap, they should smell like stories." She laughed now, or tried to, but it came out broken. Her eyes filled, and the candlelight shimmered through her tears as she clutched the pillow to her chest. "I love you too," she whispered, "so much." The pillow clicked again. A second message began to play, only this one didn't sound like Noah. It started faintly, as if the mic had picked up something in the background. Muffled footsteps, the sound of a cupboard slamming, then a voice, female, lower, sharper. "I'm telling you, she's losing it. Did you see how she asked where the keys were twice yesterday?" Pause. Another voice, this time male. Not Noah, not Dean, not anyone she recognized at first. But then, "She's just old Lisa. That's not the same thing." Lisa, her daughter-in-law. "No, Rich, it's more than that. We could have her evaluated, by someone official. Once that's on paper, the house goes through us. That's how it works." Eleanor froze. Her hands turned to stone around the soft pillow. Her heartbeat pounded so hard she couldn't tell if the sound she heard was part of the recording or inside her chest. "You want to institutionalize my Mother Richard's voice." It was him, distant, hesitant. "I'm not saying that," Lisa said sweetly, her tone turning syrupy. "I'm saying we need to protect her. And if that means moving her to a care facility somewhere safe, then, yeah, that's love too." The audio cut. Eleanor blinked. Once, twice. The room swam. She pressed the button again. "Night, night, Grandma. I love you more than spaghetti." She let it play through, then waited for the second clip. "I'm telling you, she's losing it." There it was again. The same cruel conversation disguised as concern. The same betrayal softened with just enough plausible deniability to sound maternal. The words wrapped in poison-laced ribbon. Eleanor set the pillow down like it had turned to fire in her hands. Her fork scraped against the plate as she pushed the tart away. The powdered sugar smudged onto the linen napkin, but she didn't care. Her breath came in shallow, uneven bursts. Her jaw tightened. She stood and walked slowly to the mirror hanging above the sideboard. Dean's photo reflected beside her, always smiling, forever static. She stared at her own reflection. Liver spots. Wrinkles like river maps across her forehead and hands. Hair that used to be auburn now faded into silver threads she rarely bothered to color anymore. But her eyes were still sharp, still knowing, and right now they were full of fire. "So that's how it is," she murmured. Outside, the desert wind howled low and steady, whispering through the brittle mesquite branches. Inside, Eleanor turned off the candle one slow breath at a time. She picked up the pillow again, pressed the button, and closed her eyes. "Night, night, Grandma." She didn't let it finish. Instead, she walked over to the desk where Dean's old fountain pen still sat in its holder. She opened the drawer, pulled out a leather-bound notebook, and on the first clean page, she began to write. The header read, "Timeline of Deceit, Lisa and Richard." Underneath it, she wrote the date. Then slowly in cursive that still held its elegance, the phrase, "Tonight I heard the truth by accident. Tomorrow I begin listening on purpose." She clicked the pen shut, set it down, and stood in the darkness. 72 wasn't old. 72 was long enough to have loved, been loved, and still know when love turned into strategy. The night settled around her thick with silence and betrayal. Eleanor walked to the kitchen, opened the fridge, and poured herself a glass of cranberry juice. Dean's old heart health favorite. She took a slow sip, then raised the glass in a mock toast to no one in particular. "Happy birthday, Eleanor." She said it quietly, firmly, like a promise. Then she opened the drawer beneath the sink, pulled out a roll of duct tape, and stared at it. The first tool of many. Tomorrow she would start recording them. All of them. And the next time someone tried to talk about love as a reason to erase her, she'd make sure their voices were the ones no one could forget. Eleanor didn't sleep. She sat in the living room, the lights off the pillow cradled in her lap, like it might disappear if she let go of it. The birthday candle had burned itself into a stub wax, hardened on the tablecloth. The tart remained untouched. The first time she'd heard it, those words, it felt like a mistake. A glitch. Some kind of mix-up in the recording. Maybe the pillow was refurbished. Maybe someone else's memories had been stitched into the fabric by accident. It could happen, right? Companies mess things up all the time. It didn't have to be hers. But as she sat there, heart pounding, the air stale and unmoving around her, she pressed the button again. "Night, night, Grandma. I love you more than spaghetti." The voice of her grandson, high and sweet, the way he used to sound before he stopped answering her letters. A beat of silence. Then, "She's not safe on her own, Rich. You said it yourself, she left the stove on last month." "That was once. Once is enough when you're pushing 80. I'm serious. There are places, really nice ones, where she can have help structure." "I don't know, Lisa. It feels cruel." "It's not. It's necessary. Trust me. I'll talk to the lawyer tomorrow." Click. Eleanor felt the hairs rise on the back of her neck. Not just from what had been said, but how it had been said. Lisa's voice was level calm, too practiced, too familiar with manipulation. It wasn't the voice of someone concerned for her mother-in-law's safety. It was the voice of someone building a case, slowly, methodically. Her fingers trembled as she turned the pillow over, trying to find another switch, another compartment. The soft stitching offered no clues. She pressed the button again, holding it down longer this time. A new recording started, one she hadn't heard yet. She won't sign unless she thinks it's her idea, so stop asking so directly. Be subtle. You're good at that. A pause. I'm not manipulating her rich. I'm protecting our future. If she won't give us the house while she's still, a loud sound, maybe a car passing in the background, cut off the rest. Then silence. Eleanor dropped the pillow onto the floor and stumbled backward into the couch. Her legs felt hollow, like she couldn't trust them to hold her. She gripped the armrest and closed her eyes. She felt sick. Her stomach twisted in on itself. Her skin tingled in that awful way it used to when she got too close to the edge of a ladder or heard bad news on the phone, like her body already knew something her brain wasn't ready to process. Lisa. Lisa's voice. Inside a pillow that was supposed to be a gift, a comfort, a thread connecting her to the people she missed most. And instead, it was a trapdoor. Her breath hitched. There was no way this was an accident. The voice recordings were current. These weren't the sounds of the past, they were now. The conversation about lawyers, about signatures, about our future, this was an open plan, a living, breathing betrayal. And it had slipped into her home through a gift she thought she'd bought for herself, a weapon disguised as a memory. Eleanor reached down slowly, like the pillow might bite her. She brought it to her lap again and pressed the button. Nothing. The recordings had cycled through. She pressed again. Night-night, Grandma. And then again. She's not safe on her own, Rich. Each word now felt sharper than the last. She sat in the dark, pressing the button over and over like a child trying to unlock a secret passage. Each time the voices came back. No confusion, no mistakes. The truth repeating itself, undeniable. They're planning to take me away. She stood pacing now. Was this it? Was this why Richard had been so distant lately? Was this why he'd missed her last 3 birthdays, hadn't returned her calls, only sent generic, "Love you, Mom," texts that felt like afterthoughts? She remembered their last in-person visit months ago. She'd made roast chicken his favorite. Lisa had brought a kale salad that no one touched. Eleanor had offered Noah her old chess set, and Lisa had intervened before the boy could say yes. "We're trying to keep him screen-free this week," she'd said, like chess was some kind of digital drug. Eleanor had smiled politely, but she hadn't missed the way Lisa's hand stayed firm on Noah's shoulder, possessive. That visit had lasted 45 minutes. Afterward, Eleanor had stood at the front window and watched their car disappear, wondering if they'd ever come back. Now she knew the answer. They hadn't been pulling away. They'd been circling her, plotting, tightening the noose, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. Why? Why the house? Why the deception? She'd always been generous. Richard had access to her accounts. She gave him money without question. She bought Christmas gifts for Noah and Lisa's family. She never once mentioned how she disliked Lisa's tone, how she thought Lisa's stories never quite added up, how something about her always felt rehearsed. And yet, that voice, "If she won't give us the house." The sentence hung unfinished in her mind like a guillotine blade caught mid-drop. Eleanor sat again this time with her back straight, her jaw clenched tight. The room was still dark except for the faint orange glow of the stove clock. She pressed the pillow once more. "She's not safe, structure, our future." She grabbed a notepad from the side table and began writing what she heard word for word while the pillow repeated itself. Then she pressed record on her phone and let it capture the audio. She didn't know how long it would stay stored in the pillow, whether it would delete itself like some sort of spy gadget. She couldn't risk losing it. Her finger trembled only once before she hit record. The voices came again. She caught every syllable. And then she sat still for a long time. No TV, no music, no comforting rituals, just silence. Her thoughts ran wild. Images collided: Lisa smiling across the dinner table, Noah pulling away from her hugs, Richard looking at her with that mix of pity and distance, as though he was already mourning a woman who hadn't died yet. She couldn't trust them, not anymore. And if she couldn't trust them, who was left? She opened the photo album on the shelf beside her recliner and flipped to a page from a summer picnic 5 years ago. Dean was already gone by then, but the photo had warmth. Noah perched on her lap, Richard holding a soda, Lisa mid-laugh, plastic fork in hand. She stared at Lisa's face. It didn't look evil. But now, knowing what she knew, that smile looked different. It looked like someone pleased with how her plan was coming together. Eleanor's throat tightened. The room suddenly felt smaller, like the walls were inching inward. The edges of everything were too sharp. Her heartbeat had moved to her ears. She stood up again and wandered into the kitchen, half blind with panic. She opened a drawer and stared into it without seeing. Tin foil, rubber bands, pens that barely worked, batteries, everything mundane, everything useless in a moment like this. She slammed it shut. Tears came then uninvited and unstoppable. Not the quiet kind. The kind that racked her chest and curled her over the sink, fists pressed to the tile as she tried not to scream. She wasn't scared, not exactly. She was something worse. Erased. She had loved that boy, Noah. Given everything she had to him. And Richard, her son. The child she'd carried, fed, protected, raised. The child who now let his wife plan Eleanor's exile. Did he think she wouldn't notice? Did he think she was that far gone? Maybe he did. Maybe they both did. And maybe that was the worst part of all. Eleanor slid to the floor, knees hitting the cold linoleum. The pillow pressed to her chest once more. She rocked slightly the way she had when Noah was a baby, and colicky and sleepless, and nothing in the world made sense except the motion. She cried until her voice was gone, until her thoughts stopped screaming, until all that remained was the pulse of betrayal humming under her skin. Then finally she whispered one sentence aloud. Not to herself, not to Dean's memory, to the walls, to the house, to whatever invisible eyes were watching. "You want me gone," she said. "You'll have to be smarter than that." She reached for the edge of the counter, pulled herself up, wiped her face, and turned on the light. The kitchen filled with a pale yellow glow. She walked back to the living room, picked up the notepad, and drew a line under her scribbled transcript. Then she wrote, "Tonight I broke. Tomorrow I begin recording everything." The house went quiet again. But the silence was different now, not hollow, ready. The next morning, Eleanor stood in front of the hallway closet and stared at the battered cardboard box on the top shelf. She hadn't touched it in 3 years. It had always been labeled something vague. Old mail and cards, and written in Dean's handwriting, which meant she could never quite bring herself to throw it out. Not because of what was inside, but because of what was on it. His letters were long gone, sorted neatly into the safe. This box held everything else, the unremarkable ephemera of family life. A few birthday cards, some photos, random receipts, and most important today letters from Richard. She dragged over the old step stool and climbed up. Her knees creaked in protest, but she didn't stop, didn't even hesitate. The box was dusty, heavier than she remembered. She grunted softly as she brought it down and carried it to the dining table, the same table where she'd sat 2 nights ago for her birthday, alone. The sun was filtering in through the blinds, now bright and unapologetic. Tucson mornings always carried that dry, defiant kind of light, like the world was daring you to keep hiding in shadows. She took the dare. One by one, she pulled out envelopes, some yellowing with age, others still crisp. The ones she wanted were near the bottom, letters from Richard back when people still wrote them. From college, then grad school, then during his first year working in Phoenix before he met Lisa. They were warm, joking, full of rambling stories and little drawings Noah would have loved. One had a coffee ring on the corner like he'd written it in a rush between meetings. Another had the word urgent scrawled across the front, and inside was a birthday card for her dog Baxter, who died the year Dean did. Her chest ached. That version of him had existed once, but as the stack thinned, something changed. The handwriting stayed the same, but the tone dulled. One letter ended with, "Thanks for everything, talk soon." Another, "Lisa says hi. She's planning Thanksgiving, I'll let you know." Then, "Sorry we can't make it to Christmas this year. Flights are a mess." The affection drained slowly, like watching color leach from an old photograph. She laid them out in a line across the table, arranging them chronologically. It wasn't just tone. It was timing. The first flat letter. 2 weeks after he introduced Lisa. The last one nearly 18 months ago. Since then, just a birthday text. One Christmas card. No calls, no visits. She blinked hard and sat down. Her hand drifted to the pillow beside her. She didn't want to press the button again, but she had to. Click. Night-night, Grandma. Pause. Lisa's voice again clearer this time with a smug edge that cut deeper than a scream. If she signs the transfer form, we can be out of here before Thanksgiving. She'll be in that place, we'll have the house. Noah gets the bigger bedroom, everybody wins. Another voice. Richard. Tired, detached. I just hate lying to her. Lisa scoffed, a single breath of disbelief. She's 72, Rich. She's tired all the time anyway. Trust me, this is the best thing. We're not monsters. We're realistic. The recording ended. Eleanor's hands were gripping the table now. They were planning to move in. Not just helping her, not just supporting from a distance. They wanted the house, her house. The same one Dean had built the back porch on with his own hands. The one where she'd painted Noah's growth chart onto the kitchen wall even when Lisa had said it clashed with the tile. The one she still paid taxes on, maintained, cleaned. This was about ownership, and in Lisa's voice so smooth, so smug, there was no trace of guilt, only logistics. We'll be out of here before Thanksgiving, like it was a vacation package. Eleanor stared down at the letters again. The arc was unmistakable warmth to distant sun to stranger. And at the end of that arc, Lisa. She looked at the window and tried to remember the last time Noah had visited her alone. Had he ever? When was the last time he'd spent the night? The last time he'd colored at the kitchen table? She had a drawer full of crayons waiting for him, some of them broken, worn down to stubs. They hadn't been touched in over 2 years. He wasn't allowed to come anymore. That realization landed in her stomach like a brick. It wasn't busyness, it wasn't school, it wasn't life. It was Lisa. The polite excuses, the unanswered texts, the rain-checked plans, all fabrications. Because if Noah came around too often, if he remembered too much, he might start asking questions, like why his grandmother wasn't invited to his birthday parties, or why the photos from his early childhood still framed in Eleanor's living room didn't match the stories Lisa told him. He'd start to see what Lisa wanted everyone to forget, Eleanor included. She stood abruptly. Her chair scraped against the hardwood with a screech that made her flinch. Then she moved deliberate, steady toward the hallway mirror. She stared at herself again, really stared. Gray hair frizzed at the edges, eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep, lines around her mouth deeper than she remembered. But the woman looking back at her wasn't lost. She wasn't broken. She wasn't someone to be moved out of the way. She was angry, and she was done playing the fool. They wanted her out. Fine. Let them think she was fading. Let them underestimate her. Eleanor Patterson was nobody's burden, but she could play the part. And so she opened the cabinet under the TV where old Halloween decorations were stuffed between wrapping paper and tinsel. She found the perfect item in a plastic bag, an old pair of reading glasses with one lens missing part of a costume Dean had worn when he went as Mr. Magoo to a retirement party. She held them up and smirked. They looked ridiculous, which made them perfect. She slid them into her pocket, already planning her next conversation with Lisa. Then she moved to the junk drawer, found a notepad, scribbled a list, act confused gently. Repeat stories. Forget dates. Ask Lisa for help with small tasks. Mention stove. See how fast she brings up safety. This wasn't just a performance. It was strategy. She would give them exactly what they wanted, a sweet, confused old lady on the edge of forgetfulness. Docile, cooperative, almost ready to hand over her life. But behind every mistake, every slip of the tongue, she'd be watching, recording, not just the pillow anymore. No, that was compromised. It had value as evidence, but not as a tool. She needed more. She pulled out her phone, searched online for portable audio recorders, found a model that could clip to clothing disguised as a brooch, ordered it. Same-day delivery, $87.99. Worth every penny. Then she walked into the kitchen and opened a new notebook, this one a legal pad. On the front page she wrote, Operation Daffodil. Dean had called her his daffodil, said she was quiet but sturdy, the first to bloom even when winter hadn't quite let go. She tapped the paper once with her pen, smiled, and made her next list. Reconnect with Richard. Suggest dinner. Pretend nothing's wrong. Mention the house. Watch reaction. Ask for help with finances. See what Lisa offers. Delay Thanksgiving. Claim illness. Talk to lawyer. Quietly. Then she circled the last item. Talk to lawyer. Quietly. Not the one they knew. A new one. Someone outside the circle. Someone she could trust. Someone who still believed in the rights of a person who hadn't stopped mattering just because her birthday cake was lit alone. She checked the time, 9:11 a.m. Still early, plenty of time to plan. And for the first time in days, she didn't feel helpless. She felt ready, because now she knew exactly what she was dealing with. Lisa wasn't a daughter-in-law. She was a strategist, a thief with lipstick. And Eleanor was no longer asleep. The office still smelled the same, faint leather-polished wood, and the sharp edge of lemon cleaner. Eleanor had always liked that about Mr. Jameson's law firm, how everything in it felt a little too pristine, like it was holding its breath. The receptionist, a college-aged girl with chipped black nail polish and kind eyes, didn't recognize her at first. "Can I help you?" she asked politely. "I have an appointment," Eleanor replied, adjusting the pearl button on her cardigan. "With George Jameson. Name, Eleanor Patterson." There was a flicker of recognition, then hesitation. "Oh, okay. He's running about 5 minutes behind, but you can wait right over there." Eleanor smiled sweetly, but her grip on her purse tightened. She could already feel the weight of this visit like it was pressing on her collarbone. She sat down and scanned the waiting room. Everything gleamed. Law degrees, a photo of George with the mayor, one of those clocks that didn't tick but whispered time away. She didn't have to wait long. Eleanor came a voice, warm, familiar. "You look the same." George Jameson was in his late 60s now, gray around the temples, but still walked like he had a golf club in one hand and a closing deal in the other. "You're too kind," she said, standing. He led her into his office. Mahogany desk, framed case files on the wall. No computer on the desk, just paper books and a heavy pen. So he said once they were seated, "To what do I owe this surprise?" "I need to ask about the house," she said plainly. George blinked. "The house?" "Yes, mine." He leaned back slightly, sensing something shift in her voice. "Okay. What about it? Is it still mine?" There was a long pause. He opened a drawer, pulled out a thin folder, and flipped through it. His lips thinned as he read. When he finally looked back at her, his expression had changed. "Eleanor, did you authorize a petition for guardianship to be filed on your behalf?" She said nothing. George sighed. "Because one was. About 3 weeks ago. Filed by your son. Temporary guardianship, medical and financial. Claiming cognitive decline." Her throat dried up instantly. "Claiming what?" He slid the paper across the desk. There it was, in black ink and legal language. "Due to signs of diminished capacity and increasing confusion, I, Richard Patterson, request temporary guardianship over my mother, Eleanor Patterson, age 72. Below that, a signature. Her son's. "Has it been approved?" "No," George said carefully. "Not yet. It's pending. These things take time, and the court will require an evaluation from a licensed professional, a doctor, maybe more than one." "I haven't seen a doctor," she said. George gave a small nod. "Not yet." Her stomach flipped. They were moving fast, faster than she expected. "George," she said slowly, voice hardening, "can you do something for me?" "Of course. I need someone to help me. Listen, carefully, discreetly." His eyebrows raised, but he didn't ask why. Instead, he scribbled a name on a small notepad and tore the page free. "His name's Mateo Leal. Young, smart. Grew up with my nephew. Used to work freelance security, now does tech installations. He's discreet and good with hidden things." She took the paper and stood steadier than she'd expected. "Thank you, Eleanor," he said, voice low. "You're not crazy. And if anyone tries to say otherwise, send them to me." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "They won't say it." "Not yet," she said. "But I want to be ready when they do." Mateo showed up the next day in a beat-up blue Prius and a backwards baseball cap. "Mrs. Patterson," he asked, glancing at the house. "You said you needed audio monitoring." She motioned him in. "Come in, but call me Eleanor." The moment he crossed the threshold, he transformed. Calm, precise, professional. She offered him tea, which he declined. Instead, he pulled out a small case and opened it to reveal 3 micro audio recorders no bigger than a thumbnail. Battery lasts 36 hours. Rechargeable. Picks up everything within a 20-foot radius. "Do you have any preferred locations?" She pointed wordlessly: the kitchen, the living room, the hallway. He nodded, placing one behind a bookend, another behind a vent, a third inside a hollow base of a ceramic lamp. When he was done, he looked at her with curiosity. If you don't mind me asking, who are we listening to? My daughter-in-law, she said. His eyebrows lifted, but he didn't push. And one more thing, she added. Can we record without wireless transmission? Yes, he said. These store locally. Safer. She nodded. Good. I don't want anything going into the cloud. Before he left, she paused him at the door. Matteo, she said, if someone asked you to make a person sound crazy, could you? He hesitated. In editing, yeah. You could splice words, slow them down, rearrange things. Her mouth tightened. That's what I thought. Back inside, she stared at the final recorder, the one she'd saved for something personal. She walked to the mantel. There, in the center, stood a porcelain statue of a man and a woman dancing her favorite. Dean had given it to her on their 25th wedding anniversary. It had survived 3 moves, 1 earthquake, and the clumsy phase of a 3-year-old Noah. She turned it over. The base was hollow. Eleanor retrieved the last micro-recorder and gently taped it inside. It fit perfectly, like it belonged there, like it had always been waiting. She set the statue back, adjusted it slightly, and stepped away. Now the house was listening too. She didn't wait long. That afternoon she called Lisa. Her voice was gentle, a little shaky, the kind of shakiness that could be confused for age. Lisa, darling, could you come by sometime this week? I need help with something. I'm not sure what. Lisa sounded caught off guard, but recovered quickly. Of course, Eleanor. Is everything okay? Oh, I think I mixed up some papers. I've been feeling so silly lately. There was a beat. Then Lisa said I can come tomorrow. Eleanor smiled. You're so kind. She hung up and walked to the mirror again. This time she didn't see wrinkles. She saw armor. The next day, Lisa arrived at 10:32 a.m., perfectly punctual, perfectly pressed. Her white blouse was tucked into designer jeans. Her hair gleamed. Her smile was practiced. Hi, Eleanor, she said, stepping inside like she already owned the place. Eleanor moved slower, deliberate. She left a notepad upside down on the kitchen table filled with fake notes. Call vet again. Did I eat breakfast today? Mail the same letter twice. Lisa's eyes caught it immediately. Are you okay? She asked, sitting beside her on the couch. You seem scattered. Eleanor gave her best confused smile. I think I may have mailed a letter to my dead husband last week. Lisa blinked. Oh, well, grief does that. I forget things, Eleanor murmured, wringing her hands. Lisa touched her wrist too softly. That's normal at your age. Eleanor looked down like she was embarrassed. Do you think Richard will help me with the bills soon? He mentioned something about a form. Lisa's face flickered. Form, she repeated too quickly. You know, something about guardianship. I think I signed something I can't remember. Lisa tilted her head, her smile tightening. No, honey, she said gently. You haven't signed anything yet. The word yet hung in the air like a trap. Eleanor's face didn't change, but inside she was memorizing every syllable. Then Lisa said something that made her chest go cold. I know this has been hard, but wouldn't it be nice to not have to worry anymore about bills, cooking, remembering dates? We can help, Eleanor. We just need to make sure everything's official. There it was. The first clear offer. Eleanor nodded slowly, feigning trust. That sounds lovely. Lisa patted her hand. You're doing the right thing. She stayed another 20 minutes inspecting the medicine cabinet, just checking expiration dates and flipping through the TV channels until Eleanor said she needed to nap. When Lisa left, Eleanor sat on the couch without moving for 10 straight minutes. Then she stood, retrieved the recorder from under the lamp base and pressed play. Every word, clear, sharp, admissible. She labeled the file on her laptop. Visit 1, Lisa, ownership language. MP3. Her hands didn't tremble. Not anymore. Because the game had begun, and she had home field advantage. The tea had gone cold by the time Lisa stood up and smoothed the front of her blouse. Let me help tidy the bedroom, she said with that sugar-slick smile. You rest. I'll take care of everything. Eleanor hesitated. She knew what Lisa was doing. Knew it wasn't about tidying, it never had been. But she smiled softly, blinking just enough to appear confused. Oh, aren't you a dear, she said. My back's been awful lately. I think I slept wrong. Lisa placed a performative hand on her shoulder. You poor thing. Eleanor watched her disappear down the hallway, then turned swiftly and slipped behind the hallway door. The recorder hidden in the porcelain dancer was already running. but she'd hidden a second one in the bedroom last night, nested behind the antique clock on the dresser. That one would be closer, cleaner. All she could do now was wait and listen. She stood absolutely still. For a moment there was silence. Then, from the thin walls of the old house, she heard Lisa's voice drift out, no longer sweet. "No, I'm alone. She's in the other room, half asleep. Don't worry, she's useless. Just keeps mumbling and blinking at things." A pause. A voice on the phone. Male, muffled. Eleanor leaned closer. "Has she signed anything?" Lisa laughed quietly. "Not yet, but she will. You haven't seen her? She's so far gone she'll sign a box of cereal if you ask nicely." Another pause. Then, "Don't worry, we'll be in before Thanksgiving. I'll move the big furniture this weekend. Rich'll drag his feet, but he'll cave." Silence. Then, "I'm telling you, it's a done deal. She has no one left, no one who cares. She's just waiting to disappear." Eleanor's mouth went dry. Her heart pounded in her ears. Lisa's voice lowered again. "Honestly, if I were her, I'd be grateful." The line clicked off. Footsteps. Eleanor darted quietly back to the living room and sat with rehearsed sluggishness, one hand lightly massaging her temple. Lisa returned with a smile too wide for her face. All tidied, she announced brightly, "You should really think about downsizing. That room has so much history." Eleanor didn't flinch. "Thank you, dear." Lisa sat again. "So she said, 'How are you feeling today, Miyuki?'" The way she said it, so falsely tender with that slight condescension curled at the edges, made Eleanor want to scream. Instead, she blinked slowly. "Oh, just a little cloudy upstairs, I suppose." Lisa leaned in. "That's totally normal. You've been through so much. It's okay to forget things. It's not your fault." Eleanor's stomach turned. Lisa reached out, touched her hand. "You know you can trust us, right, me and Richard? We just want to help. That's all this is. Help." Eleanor nodded, but her eyes never left Lisa's face. Lisa was trying to memorize her, watching her, calculating how long it would take for the woman in front of her to crumble completely. "You're always so good to me," Eleanor whispered. Lisa gave her hand a little squeeze, then glanced at her watch. For the third time. "I should go soon," she said, standing. "Noah has piano, but I'll stop by again tomorrow, or the next day." "Of course." Lisa kissed the air near her cheek and walked out the door like she owned it. The moment the car pulled away, Eleanor stood and marched down the hall. She retrieved the recorder from behind the clock. Back in the living room, she plugged it into her laptop and hit play. There it was, word for word. If I were her, I'd be grateful. She listened 3 times, once with her hand over her mouth, once in stony silence, and once more with her fingers trembling at the corners of the tablecloth like she might rip it in half if she let go. Then she pressed the file into a labeled folder. Lisa bedroom call furniture plan, 10:33 a.m. The timestamp made her breath catch. Lisa had been lying and scheming in Dean's room. The same room where Eleanor had once sewn costumes for school plays, where Dean had read his paper every morning for 34 years, where their child had been conceived. And now it was a battlefield. Eleanor pushed her chair back, stood slowly. She walked to the fireplace, picked up the pillow. "Press the button," Noah's voice played. "Night-night, Grandma. I love you more than spaghetti." Then a pause. Then Lisa's voice again. Not sneaky this time, clear, commanding. "Say it, just say it, it's okay." A soft, boyish voice, barely a whisper. "I don't want to say it." Lisa sighed. "Do you want your tablet back?" Silence. Then, "I don't want to see Grandma anymore." Eleanor's knees nearly gave out. She gripped the edge of the couch. The audio repeated. Same exchange. Same manipulation. The boy had sounded broken, torn, not angry, coached. She pressed the pillow to her chest like it might protect her from drowning. Lisa had made him say it, had held something over him, bribed him, pressured him, used his own desires against him to weaponize his innocence. Her Noah, her sweet, wide-eyed Noah, who used to climb into her lap and trace the lines on her hands and ask, "Are these maps?" He'd once asked if he could be buried in her garden when he died, because it has the nicest dirt. He'd drawn her 10 pictures of himself as a superhero. He'd begged to eat oatmeal only when she made it. Now he was saying he didn't want to see her anymore, not because he believed it, because he'd been told to say it, and she knew Lisa had recorded it on purpose, had fed it into the pillow, a trap wrapped in nostalgia, a dagger hidden in a lullaby. Eleanor dropped onto the couch and held the pillow in her lap. The candlelight flickered on the mantel. Dean's photo stared at her unmoved. A tear slid down her cheek, silent and burning. She hadn't cried for herself in years. Not like this. Not the quiet, hopeless kind. Not the kind that made your bones ache. Not the kind that turned the living room into a tomb. But tonight she let it come. Because she was mourning something real. Not her house. Not her memory. But the idea that love was safe. That family protected you just because you were theirs. She cried until the pillow's fur was damp beneath her fingers. Until her chest stopped rising in shallow, panicked gasps. Until she could breathe again without shaking. Then she stood, wiped her face, walked into the kitchen, and opened a fresh notepad. At the top she wrote, Lisa Evidence, Emotional Manipulation, Grandchild. Below that, forced Noah to say harmful line, coached and bribed with tablet, weaponized affection, inserted clip into pillow, deliberate cruelty. She looked at the list, then underlined one word, deliberate. That was the key. Not accidental, not out of love. Intentional. She clicked the audio onto her hard drive, backed it up to a USB, and hid it in the old tea tin in the pantry, one Lisa would never look in because it still smelled like licorice. The next phase of the plan would be public. But this moment, this silent ache, this intimate wound, it belonged only to Eleanor. And she would never forget it. Not now. Not ever. Eleanor didn't sleep. She sat hunched over the kitchen table until dawn laptop, open headphones over her ears, the same recordings playing again and again. Every hiss of static, every breath before a betrayal. Her fingers moved with surprising speed for someone who hadn't typed more than grocery lists in years. She labeled each clip, precisely cross-referencing it with time, date, and location. Lisa bedroom call furniture plan, 10:33 a.m. Lisa kitchen, reassurance. To manipulation, 11:20 a.m. Pillow clip, Noah coached statement, unknown date. Each file was exported in triplicate, one to her laptop, one to a fresh USB, and one to her email draft folder addressed but unsent to an inbox no one had access to. At 5:44 a.m., her eyes rimmed red and fingers stiff. She tucked the USB into a Ziploc bag and sealed it tight. She placed it inside a hollowed-out cookbook on the bottom shelf. Not the decoy shelf in the living room, not the obvious Bible on her nightstand, but inside Dean's favorite recipe book under the page he'd marked 20 years ago, almond-crusted trout. The irony wasn't lost on her. Secrets lived best between the familiar. At 6:12 a.m., she picked up the phone and dialed a number she hadn't used in nearly a decade. It rang 5 times before the voice picked up, gravelly, impatient, unmistakable. Agatha Bloom. Still using your last name like a badge, huh? Eleanor said. A beat, then laughter. Eleanor Bloody Patterson, Agatha said. What are you doing calling before the sun's even up? Someone die. No, Eleanor said quietly, but I might. Agatha's tone shifted in an instant. Tell me everything. Eleanor did. Every word. No interruptions. Just her voice, hoarse with truth, spilling the entire plot. Richard. Lisa. The pillow. The recording. The guardianship. Filing. Noah's silence, the phone call from the bedroom, the manipulation, the gaslighting, the world that used to be hers crumbling underneath a slow and quiet theft. By the time she finished, Agatha's silence was thick with rage. You've got proof, she asked. Yes. Where? In a Ziploc in a cookbook, you know me. I do, Agatha said. That's why I'm terrified for them. Eleanor let out a soft, humorless laugh. I need you to hold a copy in case something happens. Something will happen, Agatha said. Just make sure it happens on your terms. Eleanor nodded slowly, forgetting that Agatha couldn't see her. Can I mail it to you, she asked. No, Agatha said. I'm coming to get it. You're in New York. I've flown farther for worse. Give me 2 days. No, Eleanor said, surprising herself. Make it 3. Agatha paused. What are you planning? Eleanor stared out the window. The sky was shifting now. That pale, early blue that only desert sunrises could make feel holy. A dinner, she said. Agatha exhaled through the line. Oh boy, she muttered. The kind where people bring wine, or the kind where people bring regrets. The kind where they leave without a knife in my back. Agatha chuckled darkly. Text me the address. And Eleanor? Yes, you're not alone. You were never the type to go down quiet. Eleanor's voice caught in her throat. I just didn't think it would be my own son, she whispered. Agatha didn't respond right away. When she did, her voice was steel. Then it's time to remind them who raised him. At 8:05 a.m., Eleanor drove herself to the nearest floral shop, one she hadn't visited since Dean's funeral. The same woman behind the counter blinked in recognition, but didn't say a word. "I'd like something warm," Eleanor said. "Nothing funereal. Orange burgundy, maybe some yellow lilies. Any occasion." "Yes," Eleanor said, "a reckoning." The woman froze for half a second, then smiled nervously and rang her up. Eleanor carried the bouquet out like a sword. Next stop, the home goods store. She chose new placemats, cream linen with embroidered borders, then a fresh set of porcelain dishes with a subtle copper rim. She touched the edge of one plate and imagined Lisa setting her wine glass on it, clueless. Perfect. Next, ingredients. She visited the farmer's market, choosing her tomatoes carefully, inspecting peaches like gemstones, smelling each herb before adding it to the basket. She wanted this dinner to taste like home, like memory, like guilt. She drove with the windows down. The Arizona wind whipped through her hair, and for the first time in weeks, her chest didn't feel like a cage. Back home, she set everything down and opened her calendar. 3 days. She penciled it in bold and centered. Family dinner. Thursday, 6:30 p.m. Then underneath in smaller print, no exit plan, let them squirm. She opened the cabinets and began organizing. The dishes, the flatware, the wine glasses Lisa had given her 2 Christmases ago, the ones she'd mocked for being outdated just months later. She set the table, then reset it, then again, each time a little more symmetrical, a little more intentional. This wasn't a meal. This was a stage. She looked around and whispered under her breath, "You're invited to a performance, final act." When the table was just right, she pulled out an old manila folder and tucked the USB inside, added a note addressed to Agatha. "In case I don't finish this play." Then she opened the closet and took out Dean's old camera tripod. If she was going to bait them, she'd be ready. She stared at the mirror on the hallway wall. Her face looked thinner in this light, sharper. She didn't recognize the woman looking back at her, but she trusted her. Eleanor Patterson had been underestimated too long, and Thursday night everyone was going to remember exactly who she was. The knock came at exactly 6:28 p.m. Eleanor stood motionless in the hallway, staring at the front door like it was the mouth of something ancient and unkind. She let them knock again, then opened it with her best grandmotherly smile, gentle, glassy-eyed, just a little slow. "Richard," she breathed, "and Lisa. Oh, and Noah." Noah stood half behind his father's leg, clutching a small backpack. His eyes flicked upward, wary and unreadable. He looked taller, older than she remembered, but there was a slump in his shoulders that hadn't been there before. "Hey, Mom," Richard said, giving her a one-armed hug that never touched his chest. His hand patted her shoulder like he was checking to see if it might break off. Lisa kissed the air near her cheek. "We brought wine." Eleanor blinked. Oh, how sophisticated. They stepped inside. Noah lingered by the door. Eleanor knelt slightly, her knees aching, and opened her arms. "Come here, sweetheart, let me see you." Noah hesitated, then shuffled forward and gave her the kind of hug children give strangers they're told to trust. Eleanor held him gently, her face hidden in his hair, and whispered, "I never stopped missing you." He didn't respond. She pulled away with a small smile and stood. "Dinner's just about ready." The table gleamed. Copper-rimmed plates, crystal glasses, linen napkins folded into quiet triangles. The food was warm, fragrant roasted chicken with rosemary-buttered peas, potatoes sliced and layered like old shingles. The kind of dinner people only remembered long after they forgot the reason they were invited. Richard glanced around awkwardly. "Wow, Mom, you really went all out." "I had the time," she said, blinking slowly. "Do I always?" He laughed, unsure. Lisa pulled out her chair and sat with a sigh, like she was arriving at the end of something she'd earned. "It looks lovely. You didn't need to do all this." "Oh," Eleanor said, "I did." They began eating, or rather moving things around. Richard stabbed at the potatoes. Lisa poured the wine. Noah sat quietly, his fork untouched. Eleanor dropped her fork halfway through. "Oh dear," she said with a soft chuckle. "What a silly thing I've done, Butterfingers." She leaned down slowly, exaggerating the tremble in her hand, picked up the fork and stared at it for a second too long, then looked at Noah. "And what was your name again, sweetheart?" The boy flinched. Richard froze mid-chew. Lisa's smile widened, too quick, too tight. "Grandma," Noah said almost inaudibly. Eleanor tilted her head, eyes a little vacant. Of course it is. My little—" She let it trail off. Lisa leaned forward with a whisper that didn't hide the condescension. "He's Noah, remember?" Eleanor gasped. "Of course. Yes, silly me." She reached for her glass and missed it by an inch. Wine spilled. Lisa jumped up with a napkin. "Oh, no, here, let me." "It's fine," Eleanor said, smiling vacantly. "It's just water. Or was it tea?" Richard shot Lisa a look, the kind that said, "See, she really is slipping." Noah looked down at his plate, cheeks pink. Dinner resumed, tense, uneven. Halfway through, Eleanor asked softly, "Richard." He glanced up. "Do you love me?" He froze. Lisa shifted. "What kind of question is that?" he asked. "Just a question." She smiled like a child might. Richard cleared his throat. "Of course I do." Lisa reached over, patted his hand. "You've always been a good son." Eleanor sipped her wine. "You never call. You didn't come last Christmas." Richard said nothing. Lisa interjected, "It's been a busy year. And the drive." "It's 2 hours," Eleanor said, still smiling. The table went still. Richard looked at Noah, who was now pushing peas into the shape of a smiley face. Lisa exhaled loudly, put her napkin down. "Okay," she said. "Look, this is all sweet. The dinner, the flowers, the performance." Eleanor's brow furrowed. Performance. Lisa reached into her purse and pulled out a manila envelope. "You asked for help, Eleanor. You asked for structure, for protection. Richard and we've made arrangements. For your sake." Eleanor stared at the envelope like it was a roach on fine china. Lisa pushed it toward her across the table. Just a few signatures. Guardianship approval, transfer of some responsibilities, a power of attorney only temporary. Richard coughed lightly. "It's just to help with the bills, doctor's visits, stuff that's harder now." Eleanor looked at Noah. He wouldn't meet her eyes. She blinked again. "I'm sorry, I think I left the kettle on." Lisa frowned. "What?" "I should go check," Eleanor said, rising. "No, sit, it's fine." "Oh, no, Eleanor said brightly. "Just a moment." She shuffled out of the dining room, slow and uncertain hands brushing the wall as she went. Lisa turned to Richard. "She's worse than I thought." Richard nodded grimly. Noah said nothing. He just stared at his grandmother's empty chair. Upstairs, Eleanor moved swiftly. She shut the door to her study and locked it, then walked straight to the wall panel behind the desk, flipped the hidden switch, and activated the house-wide speaker system, old dusty, wired into the baseboards by Dean, back when intercoms were considered modern. She opened the folder labeled Final Playback, Lisa Compilation for Broadcast, and clicked play, then stepped back, closed her eyes, and listened as her house told the truth. It began with a crackle. Downstairs, Richard looked up from his half-finished plate. Lisa paused mid-sentence. The speakers, dusty from years of disuse, groaned to life and then clarity. Lisa's voice. Not the polished, sweet tone she reserved for holidays or lawyers, but the real one. "You haven't seen her. She's so far gone she'll sign a box of cereal if you ask nicely." Richard froze. His eyes darted toward the hallway Eleanor had just vanished into. The air shifted. Noah stopped playing with his napkin. Lisa blinked, confused. What the hell was that? Then another clip, this time colder. "If I were her, I'd be grateful. I mean, really, she's just waiting to disappear." Lisa shot to her feet. "Eleanor," she called out, voice strained. "What is this? What are you doing?" The next clip didn't answer her. It exposed her. "I'm telling you, it's a done deal. She has no one left, no one who cares. She's just another name on a house deed." Richard slowly turned his head toward his wife. "What is this?" Lisa's lips parted, but no sound came out. The recording played on. A new voice, now hers again, cooing with artificial sweetness. "You can trust us, Eleanor. We just want to help. That's all this is. Help." Then the shift, her whispering behind closed doors, a call taken in the bedroom Eleanor had shared with Dean. "No, I'm alone. She's half asleep. Don't worry, she's useless." Richard stood his chair, scraping sharply against the wood floor. Lisa stepped toward him. "This is out of context. You don't even know when that was recorded." But the next clip cut her off. "Say it, just say it. It's okay." A small boy's voice, fragile, hesitant. "I don't want to say it." "Do you want your tablet back?" Pause. "I don't want to see Grandma anymore." Noah flinched like he'd been slapped, then burst into tears. "Grandma," he choked, spinning around in his chair. "I didn't mean it. I didn't. I never meant it. She made me say it." Lisa turned ghostly white. "Noah," she said sharply. "Stop!" "Shut up!" he shouted, eyes blazing. "You lied!" Richard stared at his son, at his wife, and something inside him cracked. "I didn't know," he said. "I swear to God I didn't know." The next sound was footsteps, measured, intentional. Eleanor entered the room from the hallway, calm as ever, a small silver flash drive in one hand and a folder in the other. Her posture had changed, no longer hunched, no longer trembling. She stood like someone who had built the room she walked into. "I didn't want it to come to this," she said. Lisa opened her mouth, but Eleanor raised a hand. "No more words. You've said enough." She stepped around the table and laid the folder on the placemat between Richard's wine glass and the untouched plate of chicken. Inside, notarized property titles, medical statements affirming her mental clarity, digital transcriptions of the audio recordings, and a printed timeline of every manipulation. Lisa looked at it like it might bite her. Richard picked it up numb. "It's all real," Eleanor said softly, "every word." Lisa turned, grabbing her purse. "This is absurd," she hissed. "You edited that. You've always been a little off." Eleanor cocked her head. "Off? You know what I mean." "No," she said, voice like steel. "Say it. Say it to my face, Lisa." Lisa stammered. "You pretended to forget your grandson. You spilled wine on purpose to see if you'd wipe it up like you owned the place." Lisa laughed bitterly. "This doesn't prove anything." Richard turned to her, his voice low. "You coached our son to lie. You tried to steal my mother's house." Lisa blinked rapidly. "Don't be dramatic." Noah cried harder. Eleanor knelt beside him. "It's okay, sweetheart," she whispered. "I knew you didn't mean it. I always knew." "I didn't want to say it," he sobbed. "I thought if I didn't, she wouldn't let me go to Jake's party." "I know." She rocked him gently, her hand brushing his curls. Then she stood and faced Lisa again. "You weaponized a child's love. You tried to erase me." Lisa's voice sharpened. "You're just mad because you can't control the narrative anymore." "No," Eleanor said. "I'm mad because you thought I was too old to write one." She slid the USB into Richard's hand. "Everything you heard and more." He stared at it like it burned. I need time." "You don't have time," Eleanor said gently, "because that recording has already been sent to my lawyer and my friend Agatha, and if anything happens to me, there's a dead man's switch." Lisa's jaw clenched. "You think people are going to believe you?" "No," Eleanor said. "They'll believe you, in your own words, again and again and again." Lisa looked around. Dinner gone cold, family unraveling, truth on loop, and she realized the room was already lost. So she turned on her heel and stormed toward the door. "I'm calling my attorney," she spat. Eleanor followed her to the entryway. "And tell him what she asked. That you committed elder abuse on tape. That you used a child for coercion." Lisa turned back, face flushed with rage. "You'll regret this." "I already regret ever letting you in." Lisa flung the door open and vanished into the night. Silence followed, only the faint hum of the speaker system winding down. Richard stood like a statue. Noah clung to Eleanor's leg. She reached down and stroked his hair. "You don't have to be sorry," she whispered. "But you do have to be brave now." Richard looked up slowly. "I don't know who I am anymore." She met his eyes. "Then it's time to find out." Lisa slammed the car door with such force that the windows trembled. Richard stood at the top of the front steps, unmoving. His hands were shaking, but his voice, when it finally came, was cold, unforgiving. "Don't come back." Lisa paused by the driveway, one heel half off her purse slung over her shoulder like a war drum. She turned slowly. "What?" He didn't repeat himself. "You're angry," she said. "You'll calm down. You always do." "Not this time." She laughed, sharp and bitter. "Don't be stupid, Richard. You think she's going to take you back now? You think you're the good guy in all this?" He said nothing. "You let her rot alone for years," Lisa spat. "All I did was what you were too coward to do." He blinked. She stepped forward. "You wanted out. You liked the plan. Maybe I was the one pushing, but you never stopped me." He swallowed hard. "That doesn't make it right." She rolled her eyes. "Oh, now you have a conscience. Where was it when she was calling every holiday, when she was sending Christmas cards we never opened?" His face turned red. "Get out," he said. "Don't worry," she hissed. "You'll regret this. You always do." Then she climbed into the car, peeled out of the driveway, and vanished into the desert night. Inside, Eleanor stood still, her arms gently wrapped around Noah. The boy was quiet now, but his eyes stayed fixed on the floor. Richard entered slowly, like a man walking into his own sentencing. He looked smaller than he had an hour ago. Or maybe Eleanor thought she was finally seeing him clearly. He moved toward her, then dropped to his knees. The sound of it flesh to hardwood was soft, but it cracked something wide open in the room. "I'm sorry," he whispered, voice trembling. "Mom, I'm so God I don't even have words." Eleanor didn't speak. I believed her. I let her convince me you were fading, that it was better this way, easier. Still, she said nothing. "I should have known," he said, tears streaking his face now. "You're the strongest person I've ever met. You raised me alone for 5 years before Dean even showed up. You worked double shifts at the diner to keep us fed. You're not weak. You've never been weak." She closed her eyes. "I let her take everything from you." "No," she said quietly. He looked up, startled. "You gave it away." He sobbed harder. Please, let me come back. I'll take care of everything. Fix the plumbing. Drive you to appointments. Be here every morning, every night. I'll be the son I should have been." She looked down at him, this grown man who had once held her hand in the school parking lot, who had once fallen asleep on her shoulder during thunderstorms, who had once believed she was the safest place on earth. "I believe you," she said. His face lit up. "But I don't need you to fix the plumbing." He froze. "I already fixed it." "Then let me—" "I don't need a chauffeur, Richard." He blinked. "Then what? What do you need?" She stepped back slowly. "I need to remember who I am without being reminded of who you let me become." A long silence stretched between them. "I forgive you," she said gently. "But I can't live with someone who only remembered I existed when he saw my name on a deed." His shoulders sagged. Noah looked up at her wide-eyed. "Can I come back?" Eleanor knelt and hugged him tightly. "You never left me, sweetheart." By morning, the news was already spreading. Agatha had wasted no time forwarding the audio files to her old editor, who had not wasted his time sending them to the Arizona Department of Justice and 2 local journalists hungry for a scandal that didn't involve rattlesnakes or real estate developers. The clip of Lisa coercing Noah aired on a Tuesday evening segment. By Thursday, a formal investigation had begun. Forgery of medical decline, attempted fraudulent guardianship, coercion of a minor, intent to defraud a senior. The words piled up like bricks on Lisa's shoulders. She was arrested on a Friday walking out of a yoga class she'd posted about on Instagram an hour earlier. The cuffs were quiet, the headlines were not. Daughter-in-law accused of targeting elderly woman for property theft. Audio recordings leaked. Agatha called Eleanor as the story broke. "You should have gone into journalism," she said. "You're better than me." Eleanor just chuckled. "I don't like crowds. You like justice." Eleanor glanced out her window at the desert stretching wide and gold in every direction. "I like silence that I can trust." Richard came back once more weeks later. He stood on the porch in jeans and a gray sweater holding a basket of persimmons. "They reminded me of your garden," he said. Eleanor didn't let him in, but she took the basket. "How's Noah?" she asked. "With my sister this week," he said. She's better with him right now." Eleanor nodded. He hesitated. "Did you mean it? That you forgive me?" "Yes." "Do you think you'll ever want me back here?" "I want you to become the kind of man who wouldn't ask that question." He looked down. "I'll work on it. You do that." He started to leave, then paused. "Happy early birthday," he said. She smiled faintly. "You remembered." He looked back at her, eyes glassy. "I never forgot. I just didn't know how to remember out loud." Then he left. Eleanor stood alone on the porch, the desert wind lifting the hem of her sweater. She looked down at the persimmons. They were bruised in some places, but still sweet inside, like something worth saving, like something trying to grow again. The chair creaked as Eleanor leaned toward the microphone. She waited for the red recording light to blink on. Then she spoke. "My name is Eleanor Patterson. I'm 72 years old, and a year ago I thought I was losing my mind." She paused. "Let it breathe. I thought I was the problem, that my forgetfulness, my silence, my solitude made me disposable." Another pause. "But it wasn't my memory that was failing, it was my family." She glanced at the notes in front of her, but didn't need them. The words had already branded themselves inside her. "I bought a pillow. A silly little thing, stuffed cotton and a speaker chip, because I missed the sound of my grandson's voice. But what I found in that pillow wasn't just bedtime wishes. It was betrayal." She reached down, held the pillow in her lap like it was a relic. The seams warned the recording device, now replaced with a clean copy of Noah's real voice. "No one teaches you how to survive betrayal when it comes wearing your son's face." The studio went silent. Then she continued, "I'm not here to make anyone feel sorry for me. I'm here because silence is dangerous. And when it's wrapped in politeness and family duty, it's even deadlier." Eleanor uploaded the first episode that night. She called it "The Sound Inside the Pillow." It spread like wildfire. Within a week, senior support forums picked it up, then a small-town journalist in Kansas, then a syndicated morning show. The episode was downloaded 230,000 times in 2 months. By the 3rd month, Eleanor's inbox overflowed, not with hate but with recognition. "My daughter stopped visiting after I refused to sign my house over. My grandson only came when his mom told him to ask for my bank password. Thank you for saying it out loud." Eleanor didn't reply to every message. She couldn't, but she read every single one. The invitation came in April. National Aging Justice Summit. Keynote speaker, invitation, Eleanor Patterson. She almost threw it out. Then Agatha called her and said, "Don't make me come drag you there." So she accepted. And on the last Thursday in May, Eleanor stood backstage in a sleek charcoal blouse and slacks. No frills, no soft pastels, just dignity, steel and cotton. The lights dimmed. The announcer's voice echoed. "Please welcome survivor advocate and host of The Sound Inside the Pillow, Eleanor Patterson." Applause swelled. She stepped out slowly. No cane, no trembling. Her presence filled the room not by volume but by weight. She looked out over the crowd. In the front row, Noah in a navy blazer too big for him, and Richard, his hands folded, his eyes wet before she even spoke. She adjusted the mic. "Let me tell you a story." And she did. She told it all. The silence, the manipulation, the plan, the recordings, the night of the dinner. She didn't dramatize it. She didn't need to. She simply laid the truth at their feet and let it speak. When you're old, they expect you to be grateful for whatever scraps of attention they throw your way. But we are not abandoned furniture. We are not expired humans. We are the blueprint for the very people trying to erase us. People in the audience cried openly. Others nodded like she was saying the thing they'd waited decades to hear. "And if we are going to age," she said, voice rising, "we will age with clarity, with choice, and with courage." The room erupted in applause. She didn't smile. She stood in it, letting the sound wash over her like proof that the war was worth it. A week later, the pillow sat in a clear acrylic display case at the Tucson Community Center. The placard read, "The Sound Inside the Pillow, donated by Eleanor Patterson, symbol of recovery, memory, and the fight for dignity among the aging." People stopped and stared. Some smiled softly, some teared up, and some just stood in silence listening to the faintest audio loop playing through a nearby speaker. "Good night, Grandma, I love you more than spaghetti." Beside it, a guest book filled with messages. "This reminded me to call my father. You gave me the strength to say no. I thought I was alone. I'm not." Eleanor visited on Tuesdays. Never said much. Just sat beside the case, hands folded, watching people interact with it. One afternoon, a young social worker approached her. "I just want you to know," she said, "your story changed the way I treat my clients." Eleanor nodded. "That's the point," she said. Later that night, she and Noah sat on the porch. He swung his leg sneakers, scuffing the wooden rail. "Grandma." "Yes, sweetheart." "Do you miss the old days?" She thought about it. "No, I miss who I wasn't allowed to be back then." He leaned against her. "I'm proud of you." She smiled faintly. "I'm proud of you too." Then they sat in the quiet. No recordings, no lies, just the sound of Arizona dusk, and the knowledge that sometimes the truest healing doesn't come when people say they're sorry. It comes when you know deep in your bones you no longer need them to. The smell of cinnamon filled the kitchen before Eleanor even heard the door creak open. It was a Saturday morning, the kind where the sun came in sideways and made every dust particle look like gold. Eleanor was sitting at the little round table, her knitting in hand, a half-finished scarf pooling like warm yarn water in her lap. Then came the sound of sneakers scuffling across the linoleum floor. "Noah, close your eyes," he shouted from the doorway, his voice cracking a little with excitement. Eleanor lifted an eyebrow without turning. "Why?" "Because it's a surprise." She chuckled, pulled the blanket over her lap, and closed her eyes theatrically. She could hear him rustling boxes, a small paper bag, the crinkle of foil. Something was placed in the oven, then onto a plate. Cabinets opened, then closed. Glasses clinked. She waited, then felt a warm plate placed gently in front of her, and a glass of milk. "You can open them now," Noah said. She opened her eyes. On the plate, a cinnamon bun the size of a saucer glazed with icing that was beginning to drip down the sides. 2 strawberries cut into hearts. A glass of milk with a tiny umbrella in it, the kind one might find in a cocktail. "What's the occasion?" she asked. Noah beamed. "I finished my book report, and I told Dad I wanted to celebrate with you." Eleanor blinked. "And the umbrella?" Noah shrugged. It looked festive. She took a bite of the bun and closed her eyes. This tastes like love." He sat down across from her, his face glowing. "Dad says you're the bravest woman he knows." She looked at him softly. "Your dad's working on becoming the man I knew he could be." Noah nodded. "He has a plant now." She raised an eyebrow. "A plant? A real one, not even plastic." She burst out laughing. Richard had moved just 5 blocks away. Not next door, Eleanor wouldn't have allowed it, but close enough that he could walk over every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. Sometimes he brought tools, fixed the back gate, rewired the porch light. Sometimes he just brought groceries. But most days he brought nothing but time. He'd come in quietly, sit down and help shell peas or listen to Eleanor talk about podcasts she liked. And sometimes when she didn't feel like talking, he just sat beside her in silence. It was a slow kind of redemption, but it was steady. That afternoon, Noah tugged on her sleeve as she read on the porch. "Grandma, yes. Do you still have the pillow?" She looked up from her book. "I do." He darted inside, returning seconds later with the frayed fabric tucked under his arm like a teddy bear. "Can I update it?" Eleanor smiled. "Of course." She handed him her phone, showed him how to record. He took it seriously, lips pressed together, finger hovering above the record button as though launching something sacred. He pressed it, waited a beat, then spoke. "Hi, Grandma. I'm Noah. You already know that, but just in case you ever forget." He looked at her. "I love you. A lot. You're the greatest storyteller in the whole wide world, even better than Miss Appleby at school. And I promise, I'll never forget you again." He pressed stop. They both sat for a long moment. Then he handed the phone to her. "You can put it in now." She took the device, gently nodding, and clicked the file into place, then pressed play. His voice, tiny and steady, filled the room. "I'll never forget you again." Eleanor closed her eyes. That evening, as the sun dipped low, casting a honey-colored glow across the kitchen tiles, Eleanor sat in her old rocking chair. The pillow sat cradled in her arms, not like a trophy, not like a weapon, but like what it had always been meant to be, a vessel for love. She rocked slowly, her body moving to some rhythm only time could teach. Noah had gone home. Richard had promised to pick him up for baseball practice. She was alone now, but not empty. She pressed the button on the pillow. "Good night, Grandma," came Noah's voice. "I'll never forget you again." Her lips curved softly. Outside the window, the desert sky lit up in hues of amber and crimson. Birds flew low, heading home. A coyote barked somewhere far off, distant and wild. The glass reflected Eleanor's face, older, sharper, lined with years, but strong, present, visible, and smiling. Then the screen slowly faded to black. A final line appeared, simple and resolute. "No one has the right to take away a grandmother's voice."